Allow us to continue on with our discussion on the dynamics of energy transmissions. Please note that these are the basic foundations that will assist your further accelerated process of activations and reactivations. Eventually, you reactivate more of the necessary information for your ascension duties, either through source training. Typically and ideally, these are all initiated by source, and through divine knowing and wisdom, your innate access to true divine knowledge freely available throughout all that is. For this recording, we will tackle two major topics. First, the relevance of proactive participation in transmissions, and second, becoming a transmitter. There are typically three types of people who engage with transmissions. You are consciously aware if you become aware of a transmission being held but do not necessarily proactively participate in it. You are a proactive participant if you are partaking in any way, such as a transmitter, grounder, anchorer, or receiver in a conscious aware state. Those who fall under non-awareness are those who completely have no idea that a specific transmission is going on. In spite of which anyone falls under, everyone is receiving the downloads available through a transmission. You could refer to the first recording on how this is possible and how this occurs. But not everyone proactively or immediately makes use of these downloads and activations. This is where the huge difference lies. We can observe the unaware collective are activating and aligning, receiving downloads, but they are not consciously engaging with these activations and downloads. What is occurring here is that the higher levels of consciousness make the option available, but it is the grounded aspect that determines the final outcome. The higher levels, depending on how much an individual has reactivated and unified, can intervene and drag and override the grounded aspect with the full engagement of other people's higher levels and other elements involved. Otherwise, the grounded aspect still has full control of what is going on in its reality. For instance, your higher consciousness is trying to help you out with your ascension process by making the information available. You might chance upon a book, an article, or a poster somewhere that talks about ascension. But you, your grounded aspect, might have other things in mind and say, oh, that's really interesting, but I would really like to spend the next 123 minutes stalking my ex on Facebook. This is why the grounded aspect's full conscious awareness and engagement is vital to the overall individual and collective experience. Another key difference is how these receivers actually make use of the downloads and activations. The primary reason for the unaware collective's activations is fully explained by the basics of energy. A space cannot forever be empty. It is always replaced, filled, sealed at some point. Everyone in the collective, no exemption, and regardless of level of awareness, is automatically deactivating old programs, some faster than others depending on willingness, choices, and other factors. And if you are currently alive and incarnated on Earth, you don't really have the right to complain because you signed up for this upon incarnation. Any question have to be taken up with Source or your higher consciousness for that matter. Now, deactivating old programs means a space is created where something has to replace and fill that void, and thus the first most available activation that comes along replaces and fills that which had been deactivated. For the aware and consciously proactively participating, you get to choose what to replace that void with. You get to choose what should replace all the activated programs. only true means of achieving energy clarity and purity of intention is through holistic clearing: physical, mental, emotional, energy, spiritual detoxification and purification. Increasing meditation, prayer, and whatever recreations activities that amplify centeredness and connectedness with self and source will not suffice. Clean, clear, purify, detoxify in and on all levels. Check all your activities. A certain balance has to be achieved. The way towards absolute clarity requires being able to reconcile being comfortable and accepting of lower frequency habits, activities, beliefs, and what have you, with being able to clear them out permanently. Let me quickly touch base on the darkness versus light precept. It was discussed and emphasized in several iEvolve updates that there is nothing wrong with the third dimension. The old and so gone matrix was nothing more than an implant extracted from the third dimension energetic layer of the Earth platform. If any, we will realize that in so many ways, the third dimension is merely a creative energy field that is as pliable as the fourth dimension. And the higher frequency fields, with such as the fifth dimension and above, are actually more congealed and difficult to manipulate. The third dimension and the Earth platform is and has nothing to do with the old and so-called matrix. This is the same with dark and light. Alchemy entails looking past both as duality, as opposites. Perhaps the best way to translate dark and light is that dark is a canvas, a field of creativity, and light is your palette. The frequencies, the bandwidths, are the many different colors contained in your palette. Now, to reconcile low frequency habits is to realize they are not you. They are neither dark or light at all. That's a complete opposite of Source. And that's how interesting the power and omnipotence of Source is, to be able to manifest that which never is or is not you. And realizing and allowing yourself the knowledge that a particular habit or belief is not and is not you propels and empowers you to get rid of it. This can get tricky. Let us take a very specific example. Money. How can you reconcile your beliefs about money with spiritual expansion? Now, allow me to quickly discuss this area. First, you have to realize that money is energy. Money is an expression of Source. And it is an elemental expression or energetic expression of the Earth platform. It is possible to live without it, as what ancient societies proved, but we learn to appreciate the creation of money and how and why it came to be as a replacement or transcended expression of ancient systems of exchange, not because they no longer were able to contain that expression, that system. And I will choose to use the word contain as opposed to effectively and efficiently provide. That is because barter, which was the general system used, is still very useful to this day. But as a cycle of energy, barter has fulfilled this energy or necessary energy flow of abundance. So the tendency of fulfilling the flow of abundance is to create even more abundance. And this is how the expression through money came to be. So by clearing out the lower frequency energies in our beliefs and dynamics and basically how we approach or think of money, we are able to transcend them and achieve the desired energy clarity and purity of intention. All our our duties to ascension and transcendence are stipulated in our contracts. We programmed, designed, and chose them. However, assuming the position also requires claiming it. This is the paradox of flowing and yet desiring it. Express your desire by setting your intention. Let it be as frequent as breathing. The more you affirm your intention and declare it to the universe, the more you align yourself to its reality. That's the paradox of allowing divine timing and claiming forth. Becoming a transmitter also requires a certain stability and readiness. Allow me to share my experience as transmitter for the Rebuilding Relationships transmissions, which started on November 2015 and ends this January 2016. The December passage, as we all know it, was quite intense on all levels, primarily because we were going through a lot of transmissions, and there were a lot of transmissions being held at all levels. That is to say, planetary, galactic, cosmic, source level. And for the Rebuilding Relationships, we set the pace of the solstice, Christmas, New Year energy by starting on December 11. Apart from the 12-12 energies, we were also aligning with the 11-11 energy. It was an 11-day that allowed for effortless collective connection with the ascension energy field. Our 12-12 vortex was directly linked to the 12-21. We were allowed a bit of breathing space in between 12-21 to 12-25. However, as a transmission directly supervised at source level, this was also connected to an alignment with the source portal that occurred at the planetary, galactic, cosmic level. This anchored the transmissions to one huge vortex that ended on January 3. So we were actually engaged with one huge portal that had no breaks in between, at source level, that is. Many felt the intensity of this during the last week of December, specifically between December 28 to January 1. For me, the entire passage required much alone time for grounding, integrating, as much downtime as possible, and yet I was also required to be at several places. To have the most conducive setup possible, this required certain people or elements out of the picture. And when the latter is vital, there are times when extreme scenarios have to take place. Because asking a person or people to leave because you have an ascension duty to carry out is not always the best solution, as much as we would all wish it was as plain and simple as saying so. Since December 23 to present, I had been on much fasting. I have only enough energy to do very specific basic tasks that being an individual in form requires. I had spent several days proactively choosing to sleep all day if I have to. Eventually, it's not a choice, especially during the 29th to the 3rd. I had to keep myself as latent as possible, watching, experiencing the frequencies profusely pour in. Physically, these were just integrating and activating simultaneously. I did not bother to process much all at once. I would just lay down or sit in meditation, keeping myself open to allow all and everything to pass through. Remember that as a transmitter, you are the first receiver, first claimer. All that a transmission requires, you must be capable to claim and fully align with it, because you're claiming that and aligning that for yourself and for everyone receiving the transmission. For instance, accepting and committing myself to the Rebuilding Relationships transmissions demands that I be able to uphold what I am transmitting for. Several times a friend asked me for counsel while working with this friend was significantly aligned with other ascension duties. Eventually, a line had to be drawn, and more authenticity had to be allowed in. If there are any remaining individual energy blocks within you, these get pushed out and often magnified for clearing. If you have cleared out most individual energy blocks and are primarily working from your field of energy influence, you are no longer clearing just for yourself. In a nutshell, emotional, mental, energy, physical stability are basic requisites. Allow yourself to take comfort that you would not be presented with anything that you are not capable of.